Okay, so this video I referred to a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. We had a snowstorm one night, and my wife needed to use the X748 here to blade the driveway. Well, just due to happenstance, we haven't had any snow this year. In the previous place we lived, we didn't have a lot to move. I did it all because I really enjoy operating the machines. And so she never really had bladed much. She's kind of practiced a couple times on nice, bright days like this, where it's a little warmer outside and everything else. But she had never done it under a stressful situation, where she needed to do it to get to work or anything like that. She said she looked on my videos online, and she's like, first off, they were boring to her, and second off, they didn't teach her anything because all it was me going around blading. So I told her that I would make a video to basically show kind of the basics of using the blade on a garden tractor. What we're going to do is I'm going to go around, I'm going to talk about the types of situations, because I think that's probably one of the big factors. Then I'll talk about type of machine, and I'll talk about types of blade, and then the ultimate goals of moving snow and things to think about. If you've moved snow with a blade before, this video is probably not, you're not going to learn anything. If you want to critique my methods, that's perfectly fine. I am by no means expert. I'm self-taught on doing this. My biggest piece of advice to anybody that wants to use a blade to move snow is get out there and do it. You learn by doing in this case. There's always initial hesitation at the beginning, that you really, you feel like you're going to push the machine too hard. The machine will tell you when it's being pushed too hard. But, so, on to my list. So, much like the other night, I've already kind of highlighted this. In her case, it was about 10:30 at night, and, she was trying to move snow. It had snowed all day. There was probably, 4 inches or more on most of the driveway. Very rarely do you get to move snow on a nice pretty day like this. I think it's about 25 degrees outside. We do have a little bit of wind, but it's bright and sunny. You never have to move snow in this kind of weather. Generally it's snowing, or it is bitterly cold, or the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour. It's never nice when you're actually required to move snow. Take that with a grain of salt. It's oftentimes better to move snow, particularly with a blade. It's better to move it more often than wait till the end of the storm. If you had a blower, you could wait till the end of the storm. So, snow amount really plays into a lot of moving with the blade. I never try to move more than about 6 inches with a blade with this type of machine. You can move more with a larger machine, but what it boils down to is weight. So depending on what machine you have in the garage, that's 4 to 6 inches could go up or down, completely depending on your situation, the type of snow you get. So one thing I did want to highlight is the types of machine. Pushing snow with a garden tractor is going to be very dependent on weight, because if you think about it, you need weight for traction because you're pushing something with a blade. So much like if you think about big bulldozers, they weigh a lot because they're pushing a lot of weight. In this particular case, the X748, I think as I've got it set up, is pushing right at 1,500 pounds as I have it set up with the 54-inch blade. I've never put it on a scale like this. I can push a decent amount of snow. It's got a 54-inch blade on it. Some other blade sizes, common sizes, would be 42, 44. I've seen a couple 50-inch blades. And then there's some 60-inch blades available that are out there. And also a couple 66-inch blades that I've seen. Capability-wise, if you're in the upper level garden tractors, you can have four-wheel drive. In this case, the X748 does have four-wheel drive, so that will certainly play a role into it. If you can have traction on all four wheels, you will be able to move more snow than a two-wheel drive machine. That's not to say a two-wheel drive machine is not effective. Now, I think the most important thing is operation. Operation-wise, it really depends on the type of machine. There are many different types, and I'm not specifically even saying John Deere's. There are many types of machines that can use blades. What you're going to find is there's going to be two different types of machines. In this case, the most important thing you're concerned about is the blade coming up or down. So in this particular case, an X748 is hydraulic. In other cases of other machines, you will have a manual lift. And the way you can differentiate those, aside from the hydraulic hoses right there, is a lot of times there will be levers somewhere either on the dash or over on the side here that will have a hydraulic. They will be the hydraulic levers to move the blade up and down, or potentially side to side. Now in this case, down there, you see that there's an instruction panel that gives you all of that on this particular tractor. And the only difference between those is the hydraulics. First off, it makes it easier on your arms because the machine is doing the lifting, not you. At the same time, if you have a manual blade, you will not have what they call down pressure. And down pressure is where you can actually push down with the blade using the hydraulics, so you actually lift up the front of the machine. That is absolutely not required to move snow. It does make moving snow a little bit more efficient, particularly if you have a bunch of ice on the ground, but it's certainly not required. Secondly is angle. So you want to angle your blade from side to side depending on where you want to put the snow. Try not to keep your blade pointed directly forward, because if you keep it pointed directly forward, the snow is going to come off the side, and you're basically kind of, for lack of a better term, you're going to be rearranging deck chairs on a Titanic, because it does you no good. All you're going to be doing is pushing it around from side to side, and occasionally you'll get some of the snow off. It's going to take you a long time. So angling the blade is really important, because the way that you angle the blade is where the snow is going to go. So that is kind of the tutorial on the blade. Blades can be angled two different ways, either through hydraulics or a manual angle. Manual angles can be, sometimes you have to get off the tractor to manually angle them, so there's some type of setup in the front of the blade area that you'll have to manually angle the blade, or it'll be hydraulics. So that is kind of the basic gist of how to, or what you're looking at. So if you don't know what kind of machine you're looking for, or don't know what kind of machine you have, that is certainly things to look at. Know if it's hydraulic or manual angle blade. Next common question, or next question I got from my wife in this case, was how much power do you need? Do you need full RPM? Do you need low RPM? And honestly, I would say that is situationally dependent. I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer in that case, because in some cases you'll need all the power the machine has. In other cases, you don't need that much power, and a lower RPM, so a lower throttle setting, will really help kind of move in the correct direction. Speed is not always required, so that's certainly something to consider. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually, even though the driveway is mostly clear, what I'm going to do the next little bit here is the driveway out to the road, and I'll actually walk out there, maybe. The driveway out to the road has drifted in overnight. I moved the snow yesterday. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to set the camera up, and I'm going to move all the snow on that part of the driveway. And I'm going to do a voiceover as to my technique on what I'm doing, keeping it in mind that the direction the camera will be pointed is north. Our wind comes from the north or the northwest. And so off to the left of the camera would be the west. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use the blade. I'm going to start on the west side of the driveway and use the angle on the blade moving back and forth to move all the snow off to the east side of the driveway. So I'm going to do that, and I'll get the camera set up, and the next part of the video will be actually moving the snow.
So before I show you the video with blade in the driveway, I figured I'd go over a couple things. I have a diagram on the screen that I've created, and I want to show you how the blade will move the snow. in relation to either pushing the square on the snow or going off at an angle. So with the forward motion arrow there over on the left-hand side, we have a blade up at the top where the snow is hitting the blade and it's going to go off to either side. And then on the bottom, we have a blade that's angled, and all the snow, as the machine hits it straight on, all the snow is going to want to go off to the right-hand side, which our objective is here on the first pass in the video you're about to see. All right, in this diagram here, this represents the paths that I'm going to take to move the snow. So much like I was saying, our wind predominantly comes from the north and also from the northwest. So we want to pile all of the snow over onto the east side of the driveway. That way, when the wind does blow, there's no drifts that form the driveway. Now, there's always going to be some type of drifting, but if you pile the snow over on the east side of the driveway, there will be a lot less drifting. So in this part of the video, much like my diagram, I started on the west side of the driveway and started working the snow over towards the east. Now what's really important to notice here is, and I kind of included a little bit of sound, is when you're blading, the blade will make scraping sounds unless you have a high density plastic blade or some type of rubber squeegee or something like that. The blade will make some scraping sounds. Also keep in mind I have a dirt driveway, so that means that it's going to make some more unique sounds than, say, an asphalt or concrete driveway. So what I did is basically, you can kind of see that I spun out a little bit when I first started. There is some ice underneath the snow that I had to deal with. Also, I should note that this tractor is four-wheel drive, and I do have four-wheel drive engaged. The next part of this video, I'll actually show you a different method for doing this first pass, because in this case I was able to do the first pass with the blade angled. Sometimes that's not always the case. So here I'm coming back, and you can see how much snow is going off to the east side compared to coming back onto the west. And I'll turn around here and I'll head back towards the road and pushing snow farther each time. And notice how the plow is kind of bossing the tractor around there. That is completely normal. So one of the big things that you have to recognize is that the plow can boss the tractor around, and so it's not a big deal. One thing that I would recommend if you had any more snow, since we're trying to move it to the east, sometimes you can't move all of the snow in one big pass like this. You have to start in the middle of the driveway, push half the driveway off to the east, and then come back and you grab the western side of the driveway, and you actually have to push the snow back over what you've already plowed. That is certainly something that you can do if you have a heavy snowfall, or say you're trying to open up a spot that you have not been, things like that. And so anyway, you can just finish kind of watching this part of the video. I'll speed it up here, and you can watch me go back and forth. So in this part of the video, I am kind of cleaning up some of my mess here, because obviously there's part of the driveway on the other side of that windrow. So what I've done is I've turned the camera a little bit, and I am basically showing you how I pile up the snow. And it's a lot of just back and forth motion, pushing the snow into piles. You'll see that I kind of come back and I create windrows that I think I can push. And the big thing with this is, it just takes a little bit of time to do this sometimes. You're never going to get out and just rip through it, particularly with this much snow on the ground. And so, you just take your time and push it up. And so here's the end of this part of the video.